Just before we make our hiker's watch, there is one technique that we're going to need that we haven't covered yet, and that is working out a user's address from their location. This is known as reverse geocoding. Geocoding itself being the process of going from an address to a pair of coordinates, and we're going the other way, so we're going to be reverse geocoding here. It's pretty easy to do, and I'm going to set it up just here in the onLocationChanged method of our location listener. So we're going to create a geocoder, which we'll call geocoder, and this is going to be a new geocoder, and we need a context, so we're going to use the application context for this because we're doing it in the context of the application. And then we need a locale, which is a format for the address. So if we type locale, you can see we've got a range of different options that we can take there. So as addresses take different formats in different parts of the world, we can choose which one we want, or we can just use get default to use the locale of the user, which is usually what we're going to want to do. And now we're going to create a list, and this is going to be a list of addresses. We want the Android location address there, and also we'll input the list class, and I'll call this list addresses. And we're going to get the addresses from our geocoder, and we're going to get them from a location. And so we can use any location we like here, but we want to use the user's current location. So we're going to use location.getLatitude and location.getLongitude. And then we need to specify how many results we want. You can see this is a list, so it may well be the case that this returns more than one address, but usually we're only interested in one of the addresses. So we'll just go for 1. And you can see we've still got an error here. That's because there's a chance that this will fail. So we'll surround it by try and catch, just in case. If there are no addresses, or if this isn't a valid latitude and longitude, for example, then this will fail. So that's what our try and catch is for. So then we'll do a check to see if we've got something back. So we'll check for list addresses not being null, and also checking that we've actually got a value. So we'll look for list addresses dot size and check that that is greater than 0. So we need to do this check first, because if list addresses is null, then trying to find the size of it will give us an error. So we're checking first that it's not null, and then that we have a value returned in it. And then if we do, we'll just log that to the logs. I'll call it place info. And then let's just take a quick look. So this is list addresses, and then we want to get the first item in the array, which will be the only item in the array, because we specified that we only wanted one address returned. So we'll get 0. And then if we have a look, you can see it knows what type it is. So right there are all the different addressed bits and pieces that we could use if we wanted. For now though, I'll just put the whole thing to a string, and we'll take a look and see what it looks like. Okay, so it's as simple as that. While that's running, I'll just find a location. So I want to put in a latitude and longitude that will actually give me an address. So I'll just look for a place in London. And there we go. In fact, I've got a pair of coordinates right there. So we'll use those. I'm sure that they will give me a valid address. Okay, so over to our emulator. Pop these in and then it should restart. There we go. And then we'll click send. That should take us to London on the map, as well as showing us the address in the logs. And there we go. So we're now just about in London, and let's have a look in the Android Studio logs. There we go. So we've got all that address info right there. So let's just change the location slightly. So if we change the latitude to 50T, for example, just to see another address. And there we go. So now I've got a quick challenge for you to extend this. Can you take the information from the address and display it in the app as a toast in a nice address format? So street number, street name, town, county or state if possible, postcode or zip code, and then country. So all the information that we would put on a standard address. Go for it. All right, hope you managed that. I'm just going to change the latitude once more to give us as clear as possible an idea of how the address is returned. So here you can see we've got the address lines that we can use, and we've also got the feature, which is essentially the number on the road, and then we've got the admin area, sub-admin area. Those are null for pretty much all of the addresses we've looked at so far, so I'm more or less going to ignore those. And then we've got the locality or town, the thoroughfare, which is the road name, and then postal code or zip code, and then country code, country name. So let's see if we can create a string containing all of those. So as we saw before, we can use list addresses .get 0, and then we can use get to get any of these features. So starting with the number, the road number, you'll notice that the thoroughfare is the name and the road number is actually the sub thoroughfare. So we'll start with that, and we'll create a string for our address, which will initially be an empty string. And then I'm going to check to see if my sub thoroughfare is not null. Then we'll add it to the string. So address plus equals, and then I'll just copy and paste that. And then we'll want a space at the end of that. So that will take address and append the sub thoroughfare to it. Then we want to do the same thing for the thoroughfare itself. Down there somewhere, get thoroughfare. So we'll check to make sure that that's not null. Otherwise, we could have problems if we try and add it to our address. There we go. And then we'll put a comma and a space at the end of that. And now I think you get the idea, so I'll copy and paste that. This time we want the town, so the locality. There we go. And again, we'll have a comma and a space at the end of that one. And then we'll get the postal code. Again, if there is one. And finally, we'll get the country. And I'll use the country name. Slightly friendlier than the code. And this time we don't need a comma at the end. Alright, so let's now just create our toast using create a new toast, and we'll use the address string and then we'll show it. Alright, so let's see that in action. We now should get the address in the log still, but more usefully we'll have a toast showing us the address, or at least we will when I put all my semicolons in. Here we go, so let's take a look. Just change that to 51.92. Send that. And there's our toast. Superb. So I hope you managed that. And especially bonus marks if you checked that each item within the address was not null before you added it to the address string. Great, so now we can do reverse geocoding with our Android apps. It's time to build our Hiker's Watch.